everyone. My name is Ryan Cam. Welcome back to my road to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, where I'll be covering every Indiana Jones film I have yet to cover in honor of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny coming out tomorrow, actually. I've covered Temple of Doom and Last Crusade as part of this project, link in the eye in the right-hand corner. But for right now, it's time to talk about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Oh boy. Indiana Jones is back. This time around, he is hot on the trail of an old friend and the Crystal Skull. There are many Crystal Skulls. However, this particular Crystal Skull is highly sought after by Russians. Along the way, he reconnects with an old flame in Marion Ravenwood, meets a new young man named Mutt Williams, played by Shia LaBeouf, runs across Lenin's top advisor, Elena Spalko, played by Cate Blanchett, and, well, fridges, nukes, ants, waterfalls, and UFOs. And a partridge in a pear tree. This is one of the first, if not the first, movies I remember liking and then actively disliking the older that I got. Now, I'm not someone who changes an opinion on a film super often. I normally am kind of stuck in my opinion, not out of stubbornness, but just the more I think about it, the more my thoughts relatively stay about the same. But this time around, I remember liking it and then growing to dislike it strongly to the point where I was in the camp of that movie did not exist. But I think as I get older, the movie is far from perfect. It is the worst of the series by a country mile, or at least until Dial of Destiny comes out. The jury is still out there. But as I sit here in front of this camera, I can definitively say that while it is the worst of the movies by far, so far, I don't think the movie is terrible. It certainly has its cringy moments, but it also has its fun moments too. There are kernels of the Indiana Jones that we all know and love in here, but you gotta muddle through a lot of crap in order to get there. First and foremost, Harrison Ford is still Indiana Jones. That magic will never truly die. And especially here, I feel like they do a pretty good job of not making his age a big factor. It's a curse and a blessing, but they don't do a thing where it's like, you're old, you're washed up, get out of here. It's like there's still reverence for the character while recognizing that since the last movie, it has been about 2 decades, and a lot has happened during that time. He has lost loved ones, Marcus, then his father, and he eventually gets suspended or loses his job because of the whole Red Scare thing, which, I'll talk about that in a minute, but a lot has happened, and the movie does, I think, a pretty solid job of showing that, yeah, it's been a rough go without dwelling on it too much. Shia LaBeouf is a very controversial figure nowadays, but I feel like this was prime Shia LaBeouf. He had just gotten done with Even Stevens. He was in Transformers the year before this, and it seemed like he was going to be a pretty big deal. Then he wasn't. I've read that in Dial of Destiny, this character is killed off. Again, I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but if it is, it's a bit of a shame because I actually do like this character and I want to see what they did with it. But, well, I guess we will truly never know. In a bubble, though, I do like this character. He's got his quirks, sure, but I see this character as a bit of a lump of clay. She's got to be molded in the right way. Kind of similar to Short Round, he's actually quite useful. He holds his own in a sword fight duel against Dr. Spalko in the jungle. So, yeah, he's not just some guy who's tagging along. He actually more than holds his own. It's always nice to see Karen Allen as Marion Ravenwood, her first time back in the series since Raiders. Nice to see her too. And then we got Cate Blanchett as Dr. Elena Spalko. I actually like this character. Is she my favorite villain? No, I would still say that's Walter Donovan. But overall, I think that she did a good job. It's Cate Blanchett, so of course she is going to bring her to use wrestling terminology, her working boots on. She's of course going to give a good performance, and she does. But I like her motivation of trying to just get all of the knowledge, as much knowledge as she could possibly get, no matter what. And basically, that leads to her downfall. Not all of the characters are stellar, though. First off, we gotta talk about John Hurt as Harold Oxley. I think it's tough because I love John Hurt, rest in peace. He was a great actor in his day. But I feel like making him just the crazy guy who's like, the eyes, alas, I saw in tears. Like, it's just a complete waste of John Hurt as a talent. Now, I kind of understand what they were trying to go for, selling the potential and the power of the Crystal Skull, how it messes with your head, especially with the implication of he got so screwed up in the head because of the skull that he put it back where he found it. It's a heavy implication there. But literally, the first time that we see him, he's like out of his mind. He's like wheeling this stick around Charlie Chaplin style. I'm just sitting there like, okay, if he's going to be bewitched, like, why do you have to make him such a goofball? While he's far from the least annoying part of the movie, he does have his useful moments. I was just sitting there like, what was even the point? And then there is Mac. I do not like this character. I just don't. They twist him to death, making him a triple agent. Is like, have him be Indy's friend or have him not be Indy's friend. Pick one and stick with it. And I don't think the movie truly knew what to go for. Is they tried to make him sympathetic because he had money issues, but it just, I don't know. Like, you could have eliminated this character wholeheartedly from the movie and it would have been no different. But now it is time to talk about, well, all of the troublesome aspects of this movie. First of all, being, well, what I'm going to call, and what I said in my review over on Brevin Thompson's channel talking about this movie, Indy is invincible now. The Indy is invincible now umbrella. Basically, they make Indiana Jones way too OP in this one, even at his advanced age. Of course, there is nuking the fridge. However, there are other moments, such as surviving army ants and dealing with this clearly larger than him Russian goon who's like at least a foot taller than him and stronger than him too. And it's just nothing to Indy. Like, he's got it well handled. When I'm old enough to remember that in movies like Raiders, Temple, and Last Crusade, he gets his butt kicked, but he is more than capable of holding his own. He's just outmatched, and he has to figure a way out of it. In the words of Matt Damon from The Martian, he has to science the shit out of it. But no, he basically just walks up to like people just like punch, punch, punch. It's like, well, that's done now. So why? Then there is, of course, nuking the fridge, which has become a meme at this point. It makes absolutely no sense. And just, it kind of flies in the face of Indy as a character, like just going from barely surviving things to being nuke proof and also not being able to drown because, as my friend Jacob Collins from 3D Movie Cinema pointed out in a DM to me, the scene where Indy, Marion, Mutt, and Oxley all go over the top of a waterfall in a car and they're somehow fine. Play the clip.
Well, that's bullshit.
Now, I understand that these movies are works of fiction, meaning that you're supposed to suspend your disbelief. You can only suspend your disbelief for so long before you recognize that doesn't work for me, pal. What's even more insulting is that there are scenes where Indy actually has to work for it, and they're great. In the scene in Area 51 where he has to retrieve the alien body parts but ultimately fails. And then the scene where Mutt and Indy are in the Nazca lines in Peru, where he has to fight off the natives, for lack of a better word. And he foils one of them by, when they have the poison dart gun, has it up to the mouth, he walks up and blows in the other end, disposing of the guy that way. So there are scenes where it's very clearly obvious that Indy still has to like work to get out of these situations. But then there are other scenes where he's just like, make it make sense. And speaking of another make it make sense, this movie, yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense. It feels very much like at least 2 or 3 movies crammed into one. In my research, I found that this was a quite labored process in making this movie. George Lucas was heavily inspired by classic sci-fi movies like It, The Terror from Beyond Space, The Thing from Another World. No, 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 not that The Thing from Another World, directed by Howard Hawks. The original version, not the remake from John Carpenter. Basically, he wanted to make something like that as a tribute to the B-movies that he grew up watching as a teenager. I totally understand where he's coming from, wanting to scratch that American Graffiti itch. It did not work.
A stupid idea from bad creative.
And in my research, I found that there was actually supposed to be more of this UFO influence in here, but Spielberg and Ford basically walked up to Lucas and politely said,
"Hell no, to the no, 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 hell to the no."
They basically shot it down. Ford said, yeah, I'm not doing it. And so they basically went back to the drawing board. There were supposed to be other scripts in the mix, including Frank Darabont, yeah, the guy who directed Shawshank Redemption. He was supposed to write a script for this, but turned it down. And even, and I had to double check to make sure it was true, M. Night Shyamalan was supposed to rewrite the script for this in the early 2000s, meaning prime M. Night Shyamalan. We're talking Unbreakable, Signs, Sixth Sense. That M. Night Shyamalan was supposed to do a rewrite for this because the movie was actually pegged to come out in the early 2000s and not 2008. But Shyamalan actually turned it down, saying that he didn't want to tarnish his memories of Raiders of the Lost Ark, one of his all-time favorite movies. Honestly, is one of the smartest decisions Shyamalan has ever made. It also doesn't help the fact that, well, the ending where it's revealed that the UFOs are there and there was no treasure and that the treasure was knowledge. That's just lame right there. This is the part where I'm kind of torn because there are good things in here, but there are like a lot of bad things too, to the point where they steamroll all the good ones. This is not a horrid movie, not even close. There's genuine effort put forth here. And there's genuine effort put forth in most movies. But at the same time, there are certain parts of it where I'm like, yeah, that was pretty cool. They are there, though. I can say that this is a bad movie with a lot of good sprinkled in there. But with that in mind, though, on my scale, I'm going to give this one an unrated. And say with the caveat of, if you like this movie, I understand. And if you despise this movie, I also understand. And I'm not trying to cop myself out here or anything. But on my scale of amazing, great, good, forgettable, and horrid, it's not particularly good, and it's not forgettable either, because 15 years later, we're all still talking about it. And it's not horrid, because there's genuine effort put forth into this. So, unrated it shall be. I'll be completely honest, I am not looking forward to Dial of Destiny. I even, in the monthly preview in June, back with Jacob Martin and Life in the Movies, I gave it a 1 out of 5 on the excitement scale. This movie is tried. James Mangold in the director's chair. Harrison Ford's back. Mads Mikkelsen is the villain. There are so many elements here to where I'm like, okay, this movie's at least trying, but I don't know how to feel. I really don't know how to feel about it. But I will go into the movie with an open mind. I'm seeing it Saturday night. So here are all of my fingers and all of my toes crossed. You can't see my toes, but trust me, they are crossed. I pass it off to all of you. What were your thoughts on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read what you have to say. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell to allow notifications, so when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam, and I'll see you in the next one.